You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Fortunate enough to be joined by Jason Scheer, Ben White on assignment in LA, where he is always on assignment, the great Ben White. I am merely Mike Luke. Hello, fellas. How you doing?
Yo.
Happy Tuesday.
All right, we got a lot to get to this show, but first we need to talk about the elephant in the room that is the Elijah Rushing decommitment. Now, we've all been around decommitments before. We all know what they look like. We all know, here's generally your basic decommitment. After much talk with God and family, I've decided that I'm going to reopen my commitment. Please respect my decision. #blessed. That's the way that almost every decommitment goes, and that's generally the way it is. Now, we have Elijah Rushing one, which is, I don't believe, actually written by Elijah Rushing, but here is the Elijah Rushing one. I would like to express my gratitude to the coaches and staff at the University of Arizona for the opportunity to be a Wildcat. As a hometown kid, my desire was to rep my city while becoming the best version of myself. I have taken into consideration the recent progress and strides the program has made. Although it is evident that the program is on the rise, I have to consider my future goal. I have come to the conclusion that the program is not the right fit for me to take the next step with regard to my development. I am therefore decommitting from the program. Elijah Rushing. All right. I've heard from many, many people close to the situation for months, and it's picked up steam in weeks. Scheer can vouch for this as well, that Elijah Rushing's father is not at all happy that Cruz Rushing, who they get Arizona football gave a scholarship to, had no other Division I offers, is not playing on the field. And this is what I have been told from many, many people expedited this decision for Elijah Rushing to move on. Scheer, been doing this a long time. I've never come across something quite like this.
It's weird for a few reasons. Again, like you said, like usually it's just like, I've made a decision that I think is the best for me. Thank you, Arizona, for everything. You're done. He rips the ability to develop the players. And then his brother, even though it didn't come from him, whatever, is currently being coached by that same coaching staff that he rips. And then George, which is funny, goes to 24/7. We got an interview with him, and he goes, we're looking for development and championships. We're hearing a lot from Tennessee, Oregon. It's like, oh, great. And then he mentions ASU. And even ASU fans are like, yes. Come on, you just did that to twist the knife. Like, we're not stupid. We're not competing for championships. You just said that Arizona is more of a long-term plan and you want immediate, and then you mention ASU. Like, the pettiness involved in the statement and then the interviews after. You know, Elijah's a great kid. I've never heard anything bad about Cruz, and they're getting punished for the actions of people close to him.
Yeah, Ben, and that to me is the unfortunate part about this is that all these same people that were telling me about this that was going to that was about to happen, they all said it's really an unfortunate situation because the kids are going to be caught in the crosshairs now. And again, like Scheer said, I would reiterate, these are great kids. I would not put my blame towards them in the least, but at the end of the day, though, the father put them in a very, very difficult spot. I would have had a lot more respect for him if he had just sat down and he had put that tweet out and said, all right, come at me. Now the kids are caught in the crosshairs, and that's not something that the kids should have to deal with.
It's unfortunate in a recruiting situation, and Scheer's seen this way better than we have over the years, when it feels that the parent is making the decision and not the kid, right? I mean, that feels like it's been the case here. It feels like there's a lot of politics behind the scenes. And like you said, when you go in there and you start bashing the coaching staff that your family is already committed and playing with, and for the longest time, the narrative in the story was, we're going to Arizona. we're going to be here, and all of a sudden that changes over time. So just doesn't really add up and makes you start to question whether or not that offer you even wanted out there. So I get that he's a highly talented player. I get that he has a lot of places to go in terms of choice, but at the same time, if this is the background that he's coming from, makes you think twice as to if you want this kid as well.
And I'm fine with kids decommitting, recommitting, whatever you want to commit, all of that. This is a different situation, though, entirely, because I expect, and this is just, I don't have any inside info on this, but I expect Keona Wilhite will still become an Arizona Wildcat. I think at the end of the day, he will recommit to the U of A. This is going to be a tough road to traverse here, having after the father has come out and essentially bashed Arizona on two different platforms. Your platform at 24/7 by saying that we're looking for championships, therefore we're looking at ASU. Okay, dude. And then on top of that, the tweet that he put out for his kids, that's going to be a very tough one. And if I'm Jedd Fisch and we're going to get to the talent level on the rise, I'm not sure that this is anything I really want to deal with.
It's going to be interesting because I believe, based on what sources have told me, and I usually wait to the last minute to release this stuff, but I'm pretty sure Jedd Fisch was going to be at Sal Point's game during the bye week. That's why you get to go to one game a year as the head coach. That's why Dan Lanning wasn't at the Russian game on Friday. It had to be Tosh. Jedd Fisch was going to use the bye week to go to Sal Point's game. I think it's against Mountain Point. It's going to be interesting if he still goes to that game. Mountain Point has a few guys, and they still want Wilhite, but do you go to that South Point game now for one or two guys, or do you go to a game in Southern California that has more players? I'm very curious to see if Arizona says, you know what, Elijah, we're done, or if they do the duty where it's look, he's not going to come here, but maybe on the flip side with transfer portal and all that, because that's happened before. You like to kind of keep recruitments warm now. You kind of have to do that with the portal. You didn't have to do that before, but I'm really curious to see how Arizona handled this in general. I know that the Arizona reaction wasn't nearly as bad as the Arizona fan reaction. To them, it's just okay, this happened. We're moving on. This is what we're going to do.
Right. And that's the thing, too, is that Arizona, you look at, and we're going to talk about this here in just a second, you look at the talent that they're putting on the field right now and the development and whatnot. That is Jedd Fisch, whatever you think about him, this dude knows how to get better talent. This dude knows what he's doing when it comes to that. And again, it was just something that I've never quite seen before, where the father puts their kids in such a difficult situation right here. And again, we need to reiterate too, Arizona gave Cruz Rushing a scholarship, and this is with all due respect, because again, he's a great kid. Cruz Rushing is not a Division I football player. He didn't have any offers. He was going to be preferred walk-on everywhere. So I don't know if they expected him to come in here and start beating out guys like, Genesis Smith and whatnot. That wasn't ever going to happen.
Sure.
No, I mean, it wasn't we saw Cruz at Sal Point. Arizona didn't make a mistake. No one made a mistake by not offering him. And he's a good kid and all that. I don't want to seem like we're ripping Cruz, but for that to be a reason to decommit. And what's silly is in the statement, it talks about development. This is the same coaching staff that Elijah Rushing committed to. Nothing changed with the ability to develop. Not one thing. So using that as an excuse just makes no sense.
All right, so let's get to some better things right now, because Ben White and I were on assignment at the Coliseum. Well, the mortals like Jason Shearer were supposed to watch the game on TV. We were able to actually be there. Ben, we're going to get into some, because not the whole game wasn't perfect. We're going to get into JDL and all that. But you and I watching that game, we both said to ourselves, and Michael Lev, who, by the way, I don't think I annoyed too much Jason Shearer.
I was going to say bigger upset, the score of Ben, the score of that game, or the fact that Mike didn't get kicked out of the press box?
I would say Mike, honestly.
Yeah, no, but Ben's arm is very sore. There was a lot of a
lot of back and forth. Yes.
But, this was the first time, probably since the Stoops era, Shear, where it feels like Arizona's got a team on both sides of the ball. Granted, they're not. Granted, they haven't played well, a ton. But the defensive line, Ben, especially, they were all over Caleb Williams, and it didn't look like a fluke. That was the thing that was wild about it. Whether it was a Taylor Upshaw, whether it was a Deuce Davis, whether it was a variety of different guys. This team has players that we have not seen in quite a while on both sides of the football.
100%. And they really won the battle at that line of scrimmage, and they made Caleb Williams uncomfortable. In that first half, I believe he only had 100 or so yards. I mean, finished the game with 219 yards and 1 touchdown. If you would have told me you're going to hold somebody like him just to 1 touchdown, then you're going to have a shot to be in that game. I thought the defensive line did a heck of a job. They limited the run game as well. I mean, USC only ran for like 146 yards. That could have been easily 300 plus, with what we've seen in the past in Arizona defenses. But I thought they held their will very good, and they proved that they belong. They kept Arizona in that game in the first half. A lot of things weren't perfect on the offensive side, like we talked about how they have been with Arizona, but Arizona was in that game. They didn't look outmatched from a physicality standpoint, and I can't remember the last time we were able to say that, against a team like USC.
Sheer, what did you see watching it merely on the live screen?
Yeah, loser.
Jedd Fisch said in Monday's press conference that he didn't have any doubts that the defense could stop USC heading into overtime. And while we may not agree with the strategy or whatever, it's wild to think that's an accurate statement. Like, Caleb Williams had 43 yards in the fourth quarter. Like, he looked human up until the overtime. And I've said this, and I'll still say it, USC personnel-wise on offense is as talented as this conference has seen in like a decade, like at every single position. And the fact that Arizona went out, and credit Nansen too, because that defensive strategy was not something Arizona used, and it's not something we expected. He used a lot of man coverage, and Arizona hasn't played man all year. And so credit to him for basically, Lincoln Riley said at halftime, we weren't prepared for what Arizona gave us, it's just crazy. And for the first time in years, physically and speed-wise, it felt like Arizona belonged on the same field as USC.
Sheer, do you want to apologize now or later to Deuce Davis? Deuce Davis was a monster on the football field. Apologize now and later. How about that?
He was great. And and the thing is, like, right after the game, we got people comparing him and Isaiah Ward. Why can't we just have 2 good defensive ends?
They're both good. We'll take both of them, please.
And that's the thing, also going back to rushing, like the way the transfer portal and Jedd Fisch develops, like I think rushing is really good. Is a freshman rushing better than a junior Isaiah Ward?
No.
Is he better than a Taylor Upshaw who you get out of the portal for a year? Well, you know what I mean? It's just the transfer portal and the development has changed, in my opinion, the impact of decommitments.
And I just need to say this again, and this isn't bashing the kid because, again, he's a great kid, but I will throw down the gauntlet right now that I still believe that Keona Wilhite is I believe that Keona Wilhite is the better prospect of the two. That if Arizona can get Keona Wilhite, I would be more than comfortable calling it a day right there. Also, Sheer, guess where I went twice on the way back from Los Angeles?
The restroom at Circle K?
At Circle K. Now, I used many restrooms during this trip, but the best restrooms were at Circle K, my friends. Check out here. Join the Inner Circle for free. Get it, the Inner Circle for free by joining the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details, all kinds of good stuff right there. And game time. Maybe you're like somebody, maybe you're not in the media and you weren't able to go to the game, but Game Time says, all right, for the people like Jason Shear that want to get in last second and maybe just hang out with the common folks, Game Time is here for you. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, let's talk about the quarterback situation here. We're going to get into some of the play calling because it wasn't all perfect here. The quarterback situation, and a lot of people and quite a few parents that would, I'm not going to obviously say who, but the difference right now between Noah Fifita and Jayden de Laura Sheer and then Ben is glaring. I mean, it just is. From what we've seen on the field this year, Noah Fifita, again, wasn't perfect, missed that, threw the ball too late in overtime for the 2-point conversion, threw a bad pick. But that was a leader of men performance right there. And I don't use that term loosely in this situation, Sheer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as down on Jayden de Laura as others yet. But I'm on record to say, like, I think Noah belongs. deserves to be the starting quarterback. Like your first 2 starts, you're going against Washington, you're at the road against USC, 2 top 10 teams, and you make a what? 5 mistakes combined. Like
8 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Yeah, like the pick was a mistake. He knew it. The pick against Washington was a mistake. He knew it. But the thing with him is he makes the mistake and then he just moves on. Like you don't like the difference is with Jaden is he makes a mistake and you're like, oh crap, here comes a bunch more because he's trying to fix it all. And yeah, he's trying to fix it all in like one play. Noah does not get rattled. And he didn't get rattled in high school when he was playing in like arguably the toughest division in the country. He doesn't get rattled in college. I'm a fan of knowing what you're going to get. And I think with Noah, you always know what you're going to get.
I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think I would cap it off by saying you put the ball in his hands. Arizona goes out there and plays 2 top 10 teams. He plays great in both those games. I just don't know how you take that away from him. I know Jed in the press conference was talking Monday about how we have 2 great quarterbacks, and let's not forget Jaden has done some great things, but I'm sorry. There's no clear difference here, and we've talked about it from the get-go between QB number 1 and QB number 2. I would love to know definitively what JDL has done in 16 starts, probably 12, 13 starts now with Arizona, where you can point and say, he's the reason he's our starter. He's significantly better. I just don't understand it. I think the offense has looked remarkably better with him. I think when you put him in there, he knows exactly what he needs to do. He has the weapons to do it, and he moves the ball effectively. Can't say the same thing about JDL. We're probably having a different conversation if JDL stays in the game against Stanford. We're having a different conversation if JDL does not play against Mississippi State, because we're finding out Mississippi State is not a very good team and Arizona should have won that game. So the list goes on. And the future is Fifita, and the future is now. And I think this coaching staff needs to realize that. And I'm not saying you need to come out and say Fifita is the permanent starter moving forward, but I feel that he's earned the opportunity to at least start next week, regardless if JDL is healthy or not. I just don't understand the difference right now. I really don't.
And the misnomer that I think is floating out there that, well, Noah is the safe guy that doesn't, that won't make mistakes, but his upside isn't necessarily there. He balled out there against Caleb Williams and USC. I mean, you threw 5 touchdowns, you throw over 300 yards. And again, you missed a play in overtime. I get it. But this wasn't just a caretaker Alex Smith type performance there, Skier.
Yeah, he's not just a game manager. I mean, we got to give him more credit to that. Game manager, he wouldn't be throwing for 300 yards. It would be 180 on 80, screen passes all day. He's making plays out there. Like we saw even the incomplete pass where he threw the go route to T-Mac, which is a play that I questioned Jed about. But that's not a game manager play. Like you're not throwing the ball 40 yards downfield with 3 minutes left or whatever. He's not a game manager, and it's not giving him the credit that he deserves.
Yes. All right. Well, you agree on that. Now, let's talk about the other guy that needs a little bit more love here, Jonah Coleman. We like Michael Wiley a great deal on this show. By the way, this is a great time to become a PHNX diehard. Go to gophnx.com. Check it out. Get all kinds of merch. You can get all kinds of behind-the-scenes footage, cool little stuff that Anthony Gimino, who Sheer has begrudgingly admitted that he actually likes, writes for us now. All kinds of good stuff. Check it out. But Jonah Coleman would be a great PHNX diehard because he dies hard when they try to tackle him. Sheer, joking aside, our buddy Justin Spears called him mini beast mode. There's a little mini beast mode to him out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's so fun to watch. He's huge. He's a great kid. Contact does nothing to him. We talk about the quarterback position, but I'm actually more curious about running back a little bit. Just like when Michael Wiley comes back, how do you divide those carries? Right. And I assume that Jonah's carries to go up, but I still like Wiley also. But man, I mean, Jonah Coleman is just a stud. And I think next season we're seeing he's very clearly going to be one of the top few running backs in the league.
Ben?
Yeah, he's special, man. I mean, he does not flinch. He will not go down. And he's versatile in the sense that he can bring that versus speed, or he can be that big bully back who gets up the middle and is willing to deal with contact accordingly. And you saw that. I mean, Arizona had a few plays there, especially in the second half, where the offense at times was on a little bit of life support, where they were able to give the ball to him and he's able to drive it, 10, 15 yards down the field and really restore that confidence that might have been lacking there. So Arizona, to me, man, I mean, we talked about receiver going into this year, about how loaded the receiving group is and how you can definitely make the argument it's one of the best in all of college football. But I would say the same thing about running back here.
One thing that I don't get about Jed, and again, it's always parsed with Jed Fish has done a very good job. He definitely gets away from times from things that are working. When Arizona's running the ball on the right side, sometimes they just go away from it for no reason. And it felt like, every time Jonah Coleman or DJ Williams was getting the rock, they were getting 6-7 carries. And that, again, doesn't and especially, too, if you're going to try that play in overtime, I mean, granted, it's a long field right there. It seems to me that you might want to try that play on the right side right there, Sheer.
Yeah, it had worked so much, right? It's right. Like, if you watch, I think Jed said 5 for 111. I mean, I don't like the call. To me, it's tough to win in that environment with that type of play call, but it worked. It worked all game, and he probably figured it would work one more time.
Why don't you go for 2 to try to win the game, though? That is one thing I don't get. I'm sorry. I'm going for 2 right there because here's why. Nobody will ever question you saying, can you believe in overtime they went for 2 to try to win against a 22-point favorite on the road? I would go for 2 there every single time, fellas, because there's no drawback. Plus, I don't want to give Caleb Williams more and more time with the ball.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, the thing is, right, that when you do that, it's interesting because he was asked about that and he said, well, our defense was stopping USC all game. I'm sorry, man. When you're in overtime and you're on the road, like you said, and this is Caleb Williams, it's a little bit different. I think you're playing with fire, and you clearly saw it when you're saying and you're thinking that you can beat USC and Caleb Williams by outscoring them. It's not going to happen. Arizona's offense did a good job. They scored the most points they have all season when it comes to, playing a competent opponent. But I'm sorry. I mean, you should have been more aware there. I don't know, Sheer, if maybe it was a rule thing where he just forgot the rule. I know a lot of people watching at home certainly did, and some people in the media had forgotten that rule that, regardless after that first touchdown, you're going to have to go for 2 anyway. So you might as well take care of business there. I just thought situationally, might have been some poor coaching there, Sheer.
Yeah, his reasoning in the press conference was basically that he didn't have the heart. I mean, he didn't say it directly, but he basically said he didn't have the heart to tell the defense we're going for it, because that would insinuate he doesn't believe in the defense when they had stopped USC all game. Whatever. I think the defense would have understood that you want to beat USC on the road. So yes, I'm not fond of that reason. He definitely didn't know the overtime rules. I mean, there's no way around that. I think he admitted it as much
I was
after the game.
surprised to admit it. I actually give him credit for admitting it. Most coaches would not admit that.
It's not even an Arizona thing. Like, I'll be watching football, and after the first overtime, if you're the road team, you should always go for the win. Always. If you're at home, I totally get playing for another overtime. On the road, as the underdog, I go for 2 every time.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about the receivers. Ben talked about, obviously, Jacob Cowing and T-Mac. There's nothing more you can say. Oh, by the way, to all those UFC fans out there that said he wasn't a top 5 receiver in the conference, I challenge you and say, come back at me with that same energy now, my friends. He is a top 5 receiver. Michael Lev, who's generally fairly guarded, asked me, he said, is he the best non-draft eligible receiver in college football? And I say, yes, he is. He's that dude. Both of them are that guy. But one thing we do need to do now, enough Montana Lamonius Craig. Sure, he's a great dude. Looks the part, just not what they need at that third position right there. Kevin Green, Malachi Riley, A.J. Jones, I don't care who you put in there. We've seen enough Montana Lamonius Craig. He's in his 4th year in college. He's just not a difference maker. They need to find somebody better at that position. Sheeran, I think they have better talent on the roster to be able to make that happen.
Well, we saw what happened when Cowing went out. And, I think obviously Cowing is really, really good. But when Cowing went out, there was no one else getting open. I mean, it wasn't, and I don't want to credit USC's defense too much. It was just Green didn't get open either. Montana has been a non-factor all year. If I'm Arizona, I wait to the bye week, start Montana this weekend. That's fine. I wait to the bye week and I really figure this out. Like, Malachi Riley, you have X amount of games. If you don't want to burn his red shirt, maybe you wait. I don't know if that's what they're thinking, a red shirt deal, but I just find it hard to believe. If you look at Montana's grading and receptions and all that, I mean, he hasn't been good all year. Like his total numbers in, what is it, 6 games now?
120 yards?
12 catches for 130 yards. I mean, it's not good enough. And 50 of them are against NAU.
Yep.
So it's not good enough, because if something happens where you play defense, like you're basically saying, you know what, T-Mac, Cowing, you have to play really good every game or we're screwed offensively.
Ben.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because that's been the challenge is you have guys heavy at the top, but at the same time, you can't just rely solely on those guys. I mean, you're going to have to rotate in and out. And that third receiving spot is definitely probably the most vulnerable spot on the offense. And he hasn't been consistent for whatever reason. We've seen it. You guys just broke down the sample size. So I think it's an opportunity, and this coaching staff probably is realizing it too, just with the way things played out on Saturday, given it's a USC team that's top 10 and whatnot. But you need to rotate and give some other guys some shots. I know coaches are reluctant to take carriers and touches away from people, but this guy really hasn't shown you much consistency in games where it matters. So it's not like you don't have any options. I would understand if, depth was a problem or they didn't have other guys at the receiving spot to rotate in, Mike, but they have guys who maybe aren't proven on paper right now, but the upside is there. The talent is there. So why not get them in the game?
Shearer, who's a higher draft pick, T-Mac or Jonah Savaiinaea?
I'd go Jonah.
I would too.
Jonah, just because there's more of a price on an offensive lineman, but
yeah.
Jonah was an absolute monster. It was funny. There was a couple plays where they stretched it to the outside, and he literally just threw guys around out there. He's it's hard to really quantify because a lot of people don't see it, but he's just a monster skier.
I know you don't like PFF, but we do use it when it proves our point. Morgan and Jonah Savaiinaea had like a 93 and a 91 pass blocking grade, which is insane. That's about as good as you can get in college football. And they have it like every game. It's ridiculous, the pass blocking that they've been able to do this season.
I'm curious, next year do they keep Jonah on the outside next year again, you think?
I think it depends on what happens with other guys. Like, how does Rhino develop and those guys? Can they move certain dudes around? I think that it all depends on that.
All right, I wanted to switch back to the defense here for a second. Justin Flowe, you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other end of the stick. That's just going to be the way that it is. And you're going to take some of the good, you're going to take some of the bad, because he's got a suddenness, he's got an explosive factor that absolutely nobody on the defense has. But guys, he's also going to do some less than ideal. He's going to have some less than ideal mistakes throughout the game as well.
Go for that one, Sheer.
He is a psychopath in every way. I love him though. Like, yeah, like you say to yourself, look, he's going to make that play on Caleb Williams in the backfield where he reads it perfectly and sacks him. And then he's also probably going to make a play where he tries to kill someone. And basically you have to decide if the good is better than the bad. And look, Daniel merely played one snap against USC. Flowe got, for the first time, yeah, and he deserved it. And like for me, I'm playing Flowe every game, and there's a fine line because you're trying to say, look, don't go kill that guy and get a penalty, but that's Justin Flowe. I mean, you just kind of got to take it and live with it.
Ben, it was wild watching him up there, though, just seeing, especially playing against a team like USC with all these 5-star athletes, this suddenness, he still stands out as kind of a superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, he was flying out there. The moment definitely wasn't too big for him. And as we've talked about, when you look at guys on this defense, the defensive line gets a lot of attention for the talent that they have. But he's definitely a guy that we've been watching very closely since the summer, as somebody who just looks different, somebody who looks just built a little bit different out there. And as a result, you see that on the field and you see that the plays he's able to make. But at the same time, you don't know what player, and I get it from a coaching staff perspective, because you don't know exactly what type of play you're going to get every snap, and that can be good and that can be bad. So if you're Jed Fish, if you're Nansen on the defensive coordinator side, I think you'd be silly not to continue to use him. But I also understand the fact that you probably have to be a little bit calculated as well. And as time goes on and as he gets into the game more, you would hope that things settle down a little bit. But he's talented. You got to find a way to get him out there.
I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit on my Twitter right here. I just told somebody going at Sheer that burner accounts that are obvious are never the way to go. Word to the wise. 15 likes already, my friend. 15
Wow.
likes. Very, very cool. Every now and then I do something funny. Now, Sheer, I need you to ask a question, though. And nobody has an answer for it, and I need to know. Last year, Arizona, by the way, Gunnar Maldonado, we can start the My Bad Gunner movement. I mean, we've got to say it. Gunnar Maldonado was fantastic. Gunnar, salute emoji to you. We've got to say it. Sheer, you've been harsh on him as well. Sheer, apologize right now.
Absolutely. That was the highest coverage grade on PFF that he's ever had, I think. Literally. It was the best on the team. There wasn't one moment, which is the first game all season, I think, where I said, oh, damn it, Gunnar. Props to him. If he can play like that moving forward, Arizona's defense is going to be even better.
It's a good thing.
All right, here's what I don't understand. Go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say it's a good thing when you're not saying Gunner's name. And that was the first game where we weren't saying Gunner's name every other snap, saying, damn it, another possession given up. So bravo to him.
Because many times when you're saying Gunner's name, you're saying, oh, geez. And you can check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one. That was good. That was really good. I'm very proud of myself. Or one of their many delicious flavors. Check them out across all socials at OG's Brands and online at ogsbrands.com to find them at a local dispensary near you. You must be 21 years or up to enjoy responsibly. The fruits, the red apple, the watermelon, the peach, you name it, they have it. Check it out, OG's. Sheer. Last year's Arizona safeties might have been the worst covering safeties in all of college football history between Christian Young and Gunnar Maldonado. Why wasn't Dalton Johnson playing last year?
The obsession with Christian Young is the only thing I could think of. There's one player a year where you go, why is this dude playing? And this year it's probably Gunnar. And last year it was Christian Young. Why is this guy in here?
All right, so we're just chalking it up to kind of a teacher's pet type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not because he was bad. It wasn't good enough. I mean, the coaches will tell you that he worked hard and he improved in the offseason and all that, but I find it hard to believe that he went from a dude that doesn't play at all to one of the better safeties in the conference.
All right, now let's look ahead to Wazoo a little bit. So Jed Fish has stated that if Jayden de Laura is 100% healthy, he will start against Washington State. And again, I need to be careful here because Jed Fish has been fantastic. And I put this out there, but I think that Jed Fish also needs to be a little careful here and that he's not Lute Olson. He doesn't have the credits to just say, I don't really care what anybody says right here. We're going to do this because he's still 7-22 or whatever it is as a head coach, something like I don't know quite what the numbers are. In football, the average fan, my mother, can watch at a surface level and say that quarterback's better than that quarterback, generally. And anybody that's watched both of them this year can tell that Noah Fifita has been better than Jayden de Laura. Sheer, I'll say this. If you go with JDL against Washington State, that better work because if he has a Stanford or a Mississippi State performance and Arizona gets blown out, there are going to this. I'm not saying the city will turn, but the city will definitely start having major concerns about Fish. If he does it, it better work.
Yeah, I mean, we talked on the phone the other day, and I said, this is the crossroads of Jed Fish's career at Arizona. This is that moment. If he goes with Jayden and Jayden plays well, no one's going to care. I know people say they'll care, but they won't care. If he goes with Jayden and Arizona loses and he throws 3 picks, Jed's going to get killed. If Jayden plays poorly and he pulls them early, I think Jed could probably get away with that if he makes that move, but I don't think he would make that move. It's really going to be, is Jayden going to play well? And I do find it interesting that he said 100%, not 99, not 90, 100%. Mm-hmm. I think he left himself some room there to maybe go with Noah and then reassess everything during the bye week.
Ben
I would agree with that. You know, I think in the nature of just college football and the way things are with the injury report and the fact that you don't have to be very transparent and it's such a gray area topic, I think Fish is just trying to put out as much generalities as he can. I mean, if you read into what he said yesterday in the press conference, it looked like a lot of just fluff. And I think if Noah is in a position where he needs to go out there again, he's going to go out there again. And if JDL is at a position where they feel he's healthy enough, I think he'll get a shot. But at the same time, I wouldn't proclaim him or say that he'll be the starter per se after this week if he throws 4 picks, because at that point, you know what this roster is. You know how good it can be just with the improvements you have on the defensive side. I have a hard time believing if he goes out there and stinks it up and Arizona loses by 2 or 3 touchdowns that they don't go back to Fifita, because at that point, you've had enough of a sample size. Now, granted, I get Fifita's only played a couple of games, but like you said, when you watch him on the screen, when you watch the command of the offense, when you watch just how things flow, I mean, there's a clear difference right there. And he's not captain check down. I mean, the kid is really talented. It takes a talented player. It takes a guy with balls and swagger to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns against USC. I'm sorry. I don't care how bad USC's defense is, but when you're going up against a top 10 program, when you're going up against Caleb Williams and you put up that type of performance, you've got to be in the driver's seat for consideration moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Now, let's say that you're looking at that 8-point spread. And you're like, all right, I know a little something that somebody else might not know. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through the BetMGM sportsbook mobile app of at least $10. You'll receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. Guys, what do we think about that initial 8-point spread on the BetMGM app? Skier, Ben, what do you guys think?
What says you, Sheer?
We're both going to say the same thing. It depends who starts at quarterback.
All right, well, I'm going Arizona. Let's say no.
Arizona. I think Arizona
You're back in the A.
I think Arizona goes out and wins this game on Saturday.
Ben, are you back in the A as well?
I am backing the A. I think Arizona wins this game. I think the defense can hold them to, 17, 21 points. UCLA was able to do it. Arizona should be able to do that and, score 24, 30 points to win that one.
All right. Now let's hear from the Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about, I want to talk before we sign off here. I wanted to make fun of ASU there a little bit. Deion, well, I guess it's partially Deion Sanders too. I don't think Colorado's a good team. I actually think Arizona's going to beat Colorado. But, man, close games. Deion wins these close games. He's got a command out there. His son is fantastic. I was rooting hard for Colorado, obviously, in that game. Sheer, you watch Deion, you see what he can do. I think they're a year away from being really, really good, actually, and not just kind of a smokescreen.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Deion when he says Shador's coming back because he's his dad. So I believe him. But, I mean, if you assume that those guys are going to come back, you assume they're going to strike gold again in the portal. He's just going to cut every bad player again and bring in 50 more guys that are really good. And eventually he'll build and all that. They're going to be an 8 or 9 win team. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. I definitely think they'll make a bowl next year, but it's pretty. I like Deion. I know he rubs some people the wrong way.
They're going to make a bowl this year, dude. Do you think they make a bowl? I bet you they make a bowl this year.
Mm-hmm. No, it's going to be close. Have you seen their schedule?
No, but all right. What do we got here? Because they're at 4 wins right now. Just need 2 more.
All right, so they're at 4, right? So they play Stanford. That's 5.
Okay.
Okay. After that, they're at UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, at Wazoo, at Utah.
They'll win one of those games.
I can see Oregon State or UCLA. They can steal one of those.
I would agree with that. But that's, I mean, if you think Arizona is going to beat them, that it's going to be tough.
I think Arizona, to give you an idea, I think Arizona. I don't think there's a game remaining that Arizona can't win. Back to the good guys right here, Ben. I look at Arizona's schedule. Now, again, they could lose these games for sure. But I don't think there's a game that they can't win where I say, no chance, poppycock.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to attribute that to the defense. Washington, USC are the games that we even said prior to the year starting that Arizona had no chance to win. And here they were 7 and 2 points away from winning those games respectively. So Wazoo, you got at Wazoo next week, and then Oregon State, UCLA at home, at Colorado. You mean to tell me you can't find 2 to 3 wins in that stretch? I think you can if you stay healthy. And if Noah Fifita is the starting quarterback, if JDL is the starting quarterback, then all bets are off the table.
And all of a sudden that home game against Utah looks a lot more winnable too, because Cam Rising may not come back this season. So, and Utah looks average.
Utah is that's a very winnable game, right? That's a very winnable game. I would agree with it. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say Arizona beats Washington State going into the bye. Noah Fifita balls out. Jaden Delora, you would assume, would be 100% healthy after the bye. If Jaden Delora or if Noah Fifita has another awesome game, they beat Washington State, can you still go back to Jaden Delora?
I think it's done. I really do. I think if Noah plays well, he has to play well. It can't be like, Arizona won 17-7. If Noah plays well and they beat Washington State, you know how I am. I've told you every day that I knew that Jed would turn back to Jaden Delora. I would shift in the other direction. I can't see how, if he goes on the road and beats a ranked team and plays his third good game in a row, how you bench him for the rest of the year. It'd be very difficult to do.
And Ben, Jed Fish has done a great job of building up a lot of credits here in the city, doing things the right way. Those start to go out the window if you play really well against Washington State and then you put JDL back in for really no explanation. At that point, I think people start to have some real questions.
Yeah, I mean, they have questions when you do that. And then when you start to lose people, right, is if you put JDL back in there in that game against Wazoo or the following game against Oregon State, then you've really lost people. I just keep coming back to explain to us, what's the clear difference between QB1 and QB2? I get that Noah's played less. I get that he is less experienced per se. But when I watch the two quarterbacks, to me, there's just clear definition in terms of who looks better on the field, who's doing more, and I think most importantly, who's the better fit for this offense. And to me, fellas, Noah Fifita is that better fit, and I just don't understand really what JDL does better on paper than Fifita does up until this point. It makes no sense to me.
Noah takes the easy first down. That is probably the best thing that I can say. When there's a 10-yard, there's a 12-yard, there's a 13-yard out in front of him, Noah throws that ball right there. Whereas I think Delora looks that off, runs it around, looks to chuck it deep. Skier, you agree with me deep down, even if you're going to pretend you don't?
No, I agree. Jaden Delora is like a video game quarterback. Like when you're playing a video game and you run all over the place and then you throw it deep. That's Jaden Delora. Like Noah's going to make the right decision, and sometimes it's going to be safe and sometimes less risk, less reward. But the opposite holds true also. It depends what your preference is, basically.
All right. Before we sign off here, Shear's going to be back again tomorrow doing a double duty right here. Shear's committed. Shear's confirmed. Then we got Jody Ayler coming on. Shear has more Twitter followers than Jody Ayler, but Jody Ayler is more famous than Jason Shear. We have
I actually like Jody Ayler.
You like Jody Ayler as well. We like that right there. Okay, that is a good thing because Jody Ayler is awesome. We're a very good fan. All right, but I'm just going to leave it on this. With the Elijah rushing, nobody cares if a kid decommits. That's part of the deal. But the way this happened was absolutely atrocious, to put it mildly. And you put the kid in the crosshairs of something that he wasn't really even involved in. I think that this should be a learning experience for many, many people. Or many people, maybe one person. All right. But for Jason Shear, where can they find you, by the way, causing all your trouble?
WildcatAuthority.com, at Jason Shear on Twitter, and the Wildcat Scoop podcast with my wife, Shelby.
And by the way, anybody out there on the board that asks me to stop the back the A movement, you only invigorate the back the A movement. It's not happening, dude. The back the A movement is here and it's not going anywhere. It is strong, it is thriving, and it is only getting bigger, Shear.
Oh, it's like, when you're a little kid and your parent tells you no and you just want to do something more. That's the back the A movement. You could tell us no, but we're just going to want to do it more now.
We're going to keep doing it more. Ben White, also part of the back the A movement as well, right there. So again, Ben, really appreciate you. Ben live and on assignment from still scouting USC for their game next week. All right. But for Ben White, Jason Shear, I am merely Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.